Welcome to the Outbound Sales Podcast with your host, Jeff Swan. Each week, we're going to be talking to sellers, sales leaders, and company founders who are sharing their secrets to getting over 10 meetings booked per month per rep. Every episode is going to be packed full of tactical and practical tips you can use to fill your funnel today. So thank you and happy hunting. Hey everyone, Jeff here from welcome to the Fill the Funnel podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Swan. I'm here with a good friend of mine and actually a partner of Outbound SOS, Tyler Lessard. He's a fellow Canuck, so let's enjoy the Canadianisms on this side. But Tyler, welcome to the podcast. Please tell everybody about yourself, who you are, who you sell to, and who do you sell to? Yeah.
Amazing. Well, it is great to be here. I have heard a lot about Outbound SOS podcast, already dropping the Canadianisms here. But as mentioned, I'm part of the executive team here at Vidyard. And for those who don't know Vidyard, we are a suite of video technologies, one of which our flagship products enable sales reps to record and send custom video messages as part of their outbound prospecting and communications with their customers. And it's been a really exciting last couple of years as we've seen this use of video rise in the market generally. And of course, within our own sales teams, they use these tools each and every day, among other things, to make sure that they're connecting with as many people as possible and helping us grow the business. In terms of who we do sell to, our primary targets are on one half of our business, we sell to sales teams, which includes individual sales reps as well as sales leadership. On the other half of our business, we also sell to marketers, marketing leaders, demand gen leaders, and content marketing leaders.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I think I've told you this many times before, but I use Vidyard religiously for prospecting and marketing. So yeah, big fan. And I even show people how to use it, which is super fun. So you know that I love it. But with that said, though, I know you have a lot of sellers at Vidyard. You've been growing like crazy. And from my experiences with your team is you got a really switched on group there. So I'm really excited to hear the inside scoop of how you folks end up booking a whole ton of meetings every month along the whole way. So first off, I want to kind of start the conversation with kind of understanding what's the average meetings booked per month for your sales rep?
Well, as with a lot of companies, and unfortunately the answer is it depends on a lot of different factors in terms of who it is in our team, the group that they're a part of. For a bit more context, we sell into organizations of many different sizes and in many different industries. So we have reps who are targeting smaller businesses. We call it our emerging market space. And those individual reps have very different targets and expectations compared to folks on our enterprise and commercial account teams who are focused on a much smaller set of accounts, but of course, looking for those higher value meetings. I'm sure many of you listening can appreciate and recognize the kinds of model that we have here. So, on one end of the spectrum, we have reps who are booking, 10 to 20 meetings in a given month. And on the other end, we have reps who are booking, 3 to 5 meetings in bigger accounts or with different individuals. So there is a pretty wide spectrum based on the fact that we do sell pretty broadly in the market.
Right. And what I appreciate about what you just said is that the company is smart enough to understand that you can't have the same quota for those enterprise reps, large deal sizes, longer sales cycles, all those things. Quite frankly, account executives at that stage can't even handle the type of volume that you can do on the SMB side, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about that, in many ways, it's about, you think about the value of those meetings that are being booked. And there's always that correlation between the amount of time and effort you want to and expect to put into getting those meetings booked to the eventual value of those. And so it actually has been a great streamlining process. If you rewind it back 4 or 5 years, it was a very different model and we hadn't matured to that point where we had broken things down. But again, for those listening who are a part of a growing sales team or even part of sales leadership, something to always be thinking about of, how can you specialize your team to make sure you're optimizing for the outputs, not just the inputs of how many activities you're doing or how many accounts you're targeting.
Right on. No, I love that. I mean, there's so many smart people that work for your organization that, have done a lot of work to dial this in. There are a lot of listeners to our podcast that don't necessarily have the luxury of that type of intelligence. So I'm hoping that the content on this podcast and the stuff that we share on Outbound SOS online will help you kind of get there. I've heard that you actually have a little bit of content to share as well, Tyler.
Well, I mean, in our world, the interesting thing for me is I'm, part of our team here at Vidyard, working with both our marketing and sales team and seeing what they're doing. But I spend a lot of time in the ecosystem as well, working with many other sales reps and sales teams, specifically on their use of video as part of their outbound prospecting. And so it's been, actually very much a privilege to be able to do that, because we get to see what's working for all these different sales teams when their use of video in outbound selling. And then frankly, we get to borrow those tactics ourselves in our own teams and start to, really understand what are those things that are working in using video as part of outbound, and marrying those with, of course, the other tactics that our teams use. So we are always looking at that, and, also sharing back that wisdom and that experience with the market on, how to use video effectively in your outbound as part of an ongoing sequence or cadence to really maximize those results. So that's a lot of what that I think about on a daily basis as well, and help to share with my community.
Amazing. No, this is really important content. I love the fact that you are practicing what you preach and really going out there to see what works today. In fact, I think that anybody who is an authority on anything involved in sales, you have to be able to do it yourself. You have to be able to validate it on your own. You can't just take somebody else's tactic and spew it, or even a tactic that worked before and talk about it now. It's always good to keep it fresh and keep it up to date. With that said, there's always going to be those, underperformers or performers, people that just haven't got there yet. What do you notice the difference between those top performers, and what do the lower performers do differently?
It's always a tough question, to really hone in on it, because there are so many different factors that go into successful and not as successful sales reps. But one thing I will share that I've consistently seen with the higher performers is that they are the ones who really, really lean into empathizing with our audience, really understanding our segment, the challenges that our potential prospects face, more so than just leaning in on understanding our products and our solutions, right? And this is something that I know as sales reps is a bit of a push and pull struggle sometimes. Should I spend time understanding our products and our solutions, or should I spend more time researching and understanding our prospects, the challenges they face, and so on? And the best reps are able to embrace both of those. But I think those who are really successful really lean into that. And frankly, they teach me things about our prospecting customer base, right? They're so curious. They're so focused on asking questions, getting to the heart of the problems they're trying to solve, the challenges they're facing. And that's when I get really excited, is when our own reps come back to me and say, hey, I learned this really interesting thing today from this account. This is something that they've been doing, or this is a challenge they've had, and I think we can help solve that. And you're like, that's great. Like, that's what I love, when you're living and breathing, understanding the real needs of the audience, as opposed to just focusing on trying to sell the product. And that's what often differentiates the best sellers to me.
Amazing. Like, I don't know if you remember or even saw it, but there was a poll that I did not too long ago about, basically it was about whether people should train reps on product research. So train SDRs on product knowledge. And right. I asserted that in my teams, I don't let SDRs learn product knowledge until they've learned the customer first. Right. It's a controversial topic, and there's people out there that disagree with me, and they're especially product-led organizations that, they really care about you understanding the product fully. But to your point, I personally believe that a rep has a much better chance of booking a meeting if they're able to speak to the pain points of the buyer, understand what's going on in their world, understand how they view a solution like yours, as opposed to knowing everything there is to know about the solution. And what I've seen through my experiences of working with, thousands of reps over my long career, have kind of validated that the people with that high product knowledge, as long as they have the customer knowledge as well, they're amazing. But the lower product knowledge but high customer knowledge, they tend to outperform every single time.
Yeah. No, I think that's super interesting. I didn't see that post, but I'm glad to hear that we are well aligned on that topic, because it is a tough one for, again, especially younger sales reps who are, you can't do everything, right? And sometimes it is very intimidating to try to understand the nuances of everything in your product, depending on what you sell, or even your services if you're selling in a services organization. But I 100% agree that knowing enough to be able to understand what questions you need to ask to better understand your audience and focusing on those skills, focusing on the needs, I think you're spot on.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to extract that and basically say, from, if I'm to understand your top secret for the successful reps, then it really is that customer knowledge. It's that customer knowledge. And I like what you said there about the specific questions, knowing what questions to ask to uncover the specific pain points and the types of solutions that customers are actually trying to use to solve their problems.
Yeah, I think that is a super important superpower to have. And there is always the nuance of, depends a little bit on the type of market you're in, the maturity of that market, sort of how you need to approach things. And one of the things I've learned in our world, we are in a relatively nascent market. It's not a well understood, technology that we're selling. We're often going in to a team that they may not have an existing solution for selling with video. In fact, 9 times out of 10, they don't, right? And so when we come in and say, hey, you should use video for selling, and here's all the things we can do for you, it's a difficult proposition, because they can't necessarily relate it to an existing problem that they have. They said, that sounds interesting, but I don't see where this fits into our current sort of picture. And that's where, when you flip it and you say, when we ask the right questions, we can always, literally always, find an opportunity to map what we do to their needs, right? When we ask those different questions, we can uncover those, your team goes to market this way, or you're investing in this type of thing, or you're having this challenge where you sit. This is where we could help you by A, B, and C. And then that, the light bulbs go off and they go, oh, I see, I get it. I see how this thing can help me. So I think it's extra important when you're in a market where you're selling something that may not be well understood yet, or they may not have a line item for. You got to get to those other understanding of their needs to be able to then insert yourself and say, that's a problem I can help you solve. And I can help you solve it in a different way than you're trying to do it today.
Yeah. And you know what, it makes me think of those reps who this is a lot of them. So if this is you, then by all means, you're not alone, but it's that concept that you feel like you have to pitch, you feel like you have to tell your value and your credibility and all that stuff early and often in your sales conversation. But realistically, you can add a ton of credibility just by asking the right questions and engaging your buyer in a meaningful conversation.
Yeah. Well, and one important thing there that I just want to emphasize for folks is that setting the right level of context is still really important. And this I know from working with sellers, as well as being pitched to more times than I'd like to count, in that just coming in and starting blank with, hey, what keeps you up at night? And you're like, what? And just being very general and vague in that way also doesn't necessarily work. I think being able to set enough context for, I'm reaching out because, I work with people in this area to solve this kind of problem, or, I'm really passionate about this thing here, and I'm part of a business that's helping companies adopt this. And I'm curious. Right now, you can start in on those questions and conversations, because otherwise, I've been on that other side where, reps will just go in and they're starting with very general questions, and it creates a very awkward conversation that they can never get back out of.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I was actually on a coaching call this morning with the team that was finding that asking those vague questions either way, whether they add context or not, vague questions tend to not really achieve the desired result. It's a lot easier in a cold call situation, a message, email, what have you, is if you're more direct and to the point, where you don't make the prospect have to think too much. Right? Because let's say if you're cold calling me, Tyler, and you make me have to think too much, I'm going to get angry at you, whether I show it or not. I'm kind of not liking you right now. Right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like if you flip and you put yourself in the shoes of the buyer, it can actually be a very frustrating experience. And this is actually one of the things that I love using video for, right? Like back to kind of where a lot of what we infuse into our own selling and when I work with others is sending like a short video as part of your prospecting. One great way to use a video is to introduce yourself, and our reps will do that consistently. They'll use a video early in their outbound sequences to, put a face to the name and to, quickly articulate, this is why I'm reaching out. These are the kinds of, things that I'm working on and the kinds of problems that I'm helping to solve. And, I'm really curious to hear if you have a problem like that might be helpful. But then not only that, but they will also send short videos to do a little bit of that show and tell to make it really clear, right? It's something that videos can do much better than just email copy or a voicemail, where I can send you a 60-second video to say, hey, Jeff, I know I've popped up in your inbox a couple of times already, and I just wanted to really quickly give you a bit of context for how I'm helping other sales leaders or marketing leaders solve this challenge of low response rates. One thing that our tool does really well, let me just show you here, is it makes it easy for any one of your reps to do this. And then when you do this happens. And that's kind of how it works. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but I just wanted to tease you with that to give you a sense for what it is that we actually are doing. And something like that, a lot of reps are hesitant to do that. They'll say, I don't want to show anything that early on. I'm always told, don't show, don't pitch. Right. But at the same time, if you think about that from a prospect's perspective, it's actually a really liberating experience where you can go, in like 1 minute, I was actually able to see a little bit of what you do. The context is now there. I'm like, I get it. Okay, let's move on to these questions that you have for me. So there's tactics like that you can use and try that, can really work with today's audiences who I think crave a little bit more of that, clarity as opposed to ambiguity.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. I mean, whenever you can add context and make it interactive and make it fun. My last question for you was going to be, how do you make prospecting fun? But you've answered it, Tyler. It's to send videos and be creative and be cool with it, right? And add that context. It is a powerful way to connect with your prospect and really put their mind at ease, right? Why is this guy calling me? This is why. Right? So that it looks like that's all the time we have for today, Tyler. But just as a quick recap, effectively what you're talking about is that when you're able to dial in as a sales leader, when you're able to dial in and understand the difference between the SMB, mid-market, and the enterprise and quota accordingly, then there's a lot less stress on the team, right? You actually have people that can attain their goals. And then your number one tip for your sales secret for booking over 10 meetings a month per rep, depending on your size, of course, is to make sure that you focus on the customer, ask really good questions that can help you understand them better. So thanks again very much for joining me, Tyler. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for joining us for the Outbound Sales Podcast. We hope you learned something new that you can use today to start filling your funnel and leveling up your outbound sales game. If you're still looking for more support and guidance on how to get to 10 meetings or more booked a month, then go to outboundsos.com. There's something for everybody. Thanks and happy hunting.